And we're back with another episode of Inside Sports Fantasy Football. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Inside Sports Fantasy Football, the Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our great shows. And if you can, please give us that 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, if you can like, share, subscribe, follow, or do anything that you can to support us right here at the Inside Sports Fantasy Football, Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, of course, the great folks at Lakers Fast Break, and everything that we do to go ahead and help you out right there at Inside Sports Fantasy Football. Plus, also as well, the great show, Domination Sports Nation. Catch all the latest news and information around the world of sports on their latest episode at the Domination Sports Nation. I'm trying to think of sing a maybe some type of a little jingle there for you. But you know what? Go ahead and check out Dominic and Chris Lardieri today at Domination Sports Nation. You'll be glad you did. Plus, everywhere we're out there at Pop Culture Cosmos, you can go ahead and support all of that, including Inside Sports Fantasy Football. And once again, it is sincerely appreciated. And you can always send us your questions, your comments, trade proposals that come your way, trade proposals that you might think somebody would like. Also, as well, waiver wire, anything that you want to go ahead in relation to lineup changes or more for Inside Sports Fantasy Football. For us here, go ahead and check us out. And you go ahead and send us that message. And you can DM us at Inside Sports FF on Twitter, Inside Sports FF on Twitter right there for you. Or else IS Fantasy Football at yahoo.com. Please go ahead and check us out right there. You can go ahead and send your questions in or on YouTube right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos as well. But I will tell you, it's a great weekend. NFL Week 8 coming back right here at you. Already started already with Tom Brady. And, of course, the matchup against Lamar Jackson. And, well, right now we see already that the Ravens took care of the Buccaneers. Tom Brady, 3-5, not looking like he once did, looking like a shell of himself with all that stuff going on off the field and on the field. Really, right now, not a great pick for you fantasy football owners of him out there. So hopefully you go ahead and make some changes accordingly. If you hopefully you have someone back up for future weeks. Maybe he's kind of a risky play going forward, but we'll see what happens there. But here today to talk about what's going on in the world of the NFL is a good man indeed. You got to go ahead and check out what he's doing today at Domination Sports Nation, along with Dominic Lardieri. It is Chris Lardieri. And Chris, great to have you here, my friend. The biggest news of the past few days is that as we get closer to the NFL trade deadline, a lot of big names are being moved about. I will also talk about this with Jordan Zucker after our conversation is done. She's with Girls Guide to Sports, so she's going to talk about that. But your thoughts on this? If everybody is making all these trades in the NFL, should you be doing the same or be at least actively pursuing it in your league as well?
I think that's always a good move in fantasy football. The problem is, we've gotten a few trade offers in my two leagues, and they're just completely one-sided. So, A, you've got to look for a player you want, and B, you've got to find a trading partner that's not looking to give you 50 cents in return for your proverbial dollar. So,
Oh, I agree with you. I have never received a trade offer in any of my fantasy leagues over the course of 20 plus years now playing that I've taken that first note. I've always come back with a counter offer. That's basically what I do to get things done. Is if I want to trade, I actually go ahead and either make the trade myself or I get a counter offer, and I usually get something I like out of that.
yeah, you have to. Some people don't realize it's a negotiating ploy, but definitely counter, even if you have to make your offer a little more one sided, and maybe that person will see the light of day. If not, then move along and try to find someone else. Another tactic that we use today, the New York Giants traded Kadarius Toney, a for lack of a better term, bust of a pick by Dave
Yeah.
Gettleman. What a shock to the Chiefs. And, he may have some signs of life there. We've got a couple guys on the bench that haven't started and aren't really producing. So we went and picked him up right away. So a tactic kind of hand in hand with that is you look at players who may be rumored to be on the real trading block in the NFL. I mean, there's one out there that if the Broncos are to lose this week, that since they've got a new owner, that Nathaniel Hackett's job could be on the line, and the the Broncos might just start trading players off. One of those names being Jerry Jeudy. Maybe you start looking for players like that if they're not out there in free agency. Maybe you try and buy low, like we always advocate on this show. So that's another tactic you can do. Third, there have been so many injuries, especially at the running back position. I saw an interesting trade this week where the Jets got Robinson from the Jaguars because Brees Hall, their stellar rookie, is done for the year with a really bad knee injury, and they don't seem to think Michael Carter is the answer at running back. So there are guys like that out there that might be on the bench in one situation who either couldn't end up being traded or are just one injury away from being a starter. So you need to start thinking outside the box. Been a ton of injuries this year and already trades this early. So things are really topsy turvy in the NFL.
That they are, my friend. That they are indeed. But we're here to break it down. I think right now that you got to go ahead and evaluate these players like Christian McCaffrey, James Robinson, when they're being traded. What are the new offenses like for them? Are they going to be as productive? With Christian McCaffrey, I kind of worry if he's going to have the same kind of volume and same kind of dependency that there was in Carolina. With James Robinson, I also think the same thing. Your thoughts on that? Because now it comes to the point where, okay, they're on these new teams. Yes, they're going to be vital parts of these new teams, but will they be as vital as on the teams that they once were?
Exactly. With McCaffrey, it looks like he's going to be in a share for the foreseeable future in terms of reps and touches. Um, Whereas with Robinson, it remains to be seen what happens. But for every one of those guys that gets traded off, there's someone like a Chuba Hubbard that pops up and he becomes a starter in Carolina. I know he got hurt, but if he does return or isn't out long term, I think he's a nice play there at running back just because he's the guy, right? So you definitely have to take that into account. Same thing with Tony. I while we got him, I think that's more of a stash on the bench type guy. If one of the Chiefs receivers gets hurt, then maybe we can plug him in as a flex player from week to week. So don't just jump on a guy because he got traded. And I think McCaffrey is a perfect example of that. I think from a football perspective, it's great for the 49ers. But if you're his fantasy owner, I don't think his value improved very much getting traded to the West Coast.
Once again, it's Inside Sports Fantasy Football. It's Chris Lardieri from the Domination Sports Nation, along with me, Gerald Glassford from the Pop Culture Cosmos. Wanted to go ahead and touch on a couple more things when it concerns trades and how you evaluate them. So, okay, people just go ahead and that comes through on the email and it's, oh, okay, it's great. I'll go ahead and take a look at it. Then you evaluate it, and then, like you said, I make sure you evaluate these trades. Yeah, of course, they're going to be one sided, or more than likely one sided to benefit one side of the equation because that's the way they see it. But think of a way before you just say reject. Think of a way that you can go ahead and either counter or maybe possibly see a silver lining that could possibly benefit your team even more.
Definitely, and what you need to do before you counter is look at the party who's made this offer to you. Look at their roster, look at their lineup from week to week, see where maybe they have holes or depth at a particular position. And then the other thing I would do is look forward a couple weeks, start looking at projections. I'm not saying they're accurate, it's basically an algorithm, but it can kind of give you some insight like, hey, this guy's got a favorable matchup. They're playing a weak team this week, or a team that gives up, if you're a running back that's really weak against the run, that might bode well for a running back you might be trading for. So start looking ahead and thinking ahead too. Don't just look at it from a 1 week perspective.
Mm-hmm. And one things I want to ask though is what is the major positions of need right now in the NFL as far as fantasy football is concerned? I think due to the number of injuries right now, I would probably still say that running backs are at a premium. So if you are looking to trade and you have a plethora of running backs, you're one of the few teams with a plethora of running backs. I think now's the time to go ahead and start making those offers and making those deals because there's a lot of teams out there that are short at the running back position.
Yeah, I completely agree. Dom and I were just talking about that. In one league, we're really deep at running back. We've got Damian Pierce or Ramondre Stevenson, depending on the week, sitting on our bench if we're not using him in a flex. So there's some trade bait right there. You've got to realize most of your colleagues in fantasy football don't have the running back depth you do. If you've got those, 3 or 4 running backs, I mean, that's just a wealth right now with given the number of injuries and lack of production, or even just some of these carousel approaches that teams are taking. So I agree. Now's the time to do it. And I think too, like with the way running backs are falling, if you've got one to deal, that's another reason to kind of do it sooner rather than later.
I'll tell you what, it's very interesting to see how this is all going to play out as far as if you are or if you're not going to go ahead and make a trade. Just be more open, just be more receptive, especially for me. I'm still, and this is something that I'll talk with Jordan here in a second, that I really feel that if you are going to get a quality trade right now for depth that will help the depth on your team, is something you should strongly consider because of injuries that are going on. I know that a lot of people don't want to plan for injuries, and I know that's something Jordan indicated to me, and you'll hear that coming up in a sec. But I really think that depth on your roster right now, because of the fact we're only on week 8, is still something of a major concern you have to consider when going ahead and either seeking or looking at a potential trade.
Absolutely. And let's not forget, the bye weeks are still looming. Don't forget to look ahead to next week or the week after that, because a running back that you might want to trade now might be in your starting lineup in a couple weeks when you really need points. I mean, just looking at the scoring in our league, Gerald, I mean, down significantly when you've got a team like the Bills on bye, for instance, or the Chiefs this week, high powered offenses. Your scoring is not going to be as high. So, what does that mean? Probably closer games. And that margin of victory is only going to become even more important.
We're going to go ahead and bring in Jordan Zucker after the break. I'm going to go ahead and chat with her about some things in regards to the what's going on as far as the trades, the Christian McCaffrey trade, James Robinson. We're going to talk about a bunch of things fantasy football and hear her thoughts as we come back with Jordan Zucker from Girls Guide to Sports. We'll hear what she has to say, and then after we return, we'll come back on the back end with Chris Lardieri from Domination Sports Nation, where he will talk about this week's picks, any extra notes and sides on fantasy football, and of course, woof, woof, woof. It'll be time to go to the doghouse. That's all coming up right after the break. This is Inside Sports Fantasy Football. And we're back to close out Inside Sports Fantasy Football. I want to thank so much Jordan Zucker from Girls Guide to Sports for stopping by on the program. Chris Lardieri is back here from Domination Sports Nation. Thanks so much for staying on with me, my friend. But before we head on out, and before we get to the NFL Week 8 picks, and of course what's going on with the doghouse, woof, 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 want to go ahead and ask you any thoughts or things you're seeing, trends, because we took a week off. Want to see what things you're talking about or things you're seeing in regards to fantasy football right now. Obviously, quarterbacks are a concern, some highs and some lows out there right now.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the quarterback position, I think the theme this year in the NFL and in fantasy is the resurrection of the so-called scrap heap quarterback. You look at someone like a Geno Smith, who I don't know, most people probably thought was out of football before this fall. Daniel Jones, much maligned in New York with the Giants. Brian Daboll comes in and says, "All right, this guy's not gonna beat you necessarily with his arm all the time. He doesn't have the greatest decision making, but boy, can he run." And, I'm not saying he's Jalen Hurts, but the guy ran for 100 yards last week and has been effective rolling out. Same with Smith. I think, he's going to get you some rushing yards and hopefully a rushing touchdown from time to time. So need to look for quarterbacks like that. I wish I had, a little more confidence in Danny Dimes a few weeks ago because we tried to get him out on waivers in one league this week and he's gone. But who knows? There are other quarterbacks out there. You look at the controversy that's brewing in New England, thanks to Bill Belichick, between Zappy and Jones. Maybe if one of them are out on waivers, go snap them up and hold on to them now because who knows who's going to be starting from week to week. And as we know, quarterbacks get hurt.
That they do indeed. And again, to me right now, I think you need to be wary. You need to have some depth because the waiver wire, in a lot of cases, in a lot of leagues, is pretty dry at this point in time. Everybody, or virtually everybody, who has been somewhat decent or is in a playable position has already been swept up in the waiver wire. So now you got to make sure that you have a team going forward that's able to cover for injuries, able to account for anything that you see along the way, especially if you're on a team that's competitive right now, like in our league where you and I are tossing back and forth over the first and second positions there. So I say right now that you just got to be aware of what's going on in your league and your roster before you go ahead and make one decision or another. And again, with the waiver wire being eh, not really there at this point in time, this late in the season, you got to go ahead and make some choices. Slamby has a question, so go ahead, Slamby, anytime. Hit us up with a question right here at Inside Sports Fantasy Football. Anytime you want on that, just let us know. You got you got a waiver wire going on. Oh, should he trade Fournette for Kenneth Walker? I would be getting Walker. I think you should be getting Walker. I think that right now he is I don't say the hottest running back in the NFL, but he is darn close to it. What are your thoughts, Chris?
Absolutely, very high on Walker. Wish I could have gotten him in waivers a few weeks
You
back.
and I both, especially because
Oh,
I had Penny. That
yeah.
was
And let's face it, one of the unsung stories of this season, besides the Seahawks as a whole, is that their offensive line's done a really good job. And I think
mhm.
if Walker can get in, I think he's a talented running back. But it looks like Penny was running well before him. I don't see that trend stopping anytime soon, and he looked really good against the Chargers last week.
Definitely thinking about that as well. I would say without a doubt, I would go with getting Walker because right now he's the hot hand, and you need to play the hot hand if you can get him. Super CNB Challenger says, "Yo, Pittman Boyd or Olave for Devonte Smith PPR."
Hmm. You know, I kind of like the way Olave's been playing in New Orleans. I'm kind of leaning towards him. But then, the news today that Jamar Chase is out 4 to 6 weeks. I think that's
Yep.
only going to get Tyler Boyd more touches. So I mean, you got a nice dilemma there to say the least. But those are the two I'm leaning towards. What do you think, Gerald?
I would. Boyd is going to get a lot of volume. I don't know if he's going to get you those spectacular touchdowns, but he is going to be probably he moves up to the number one receiver. I think it's Cincinnati right now. And Olave, yeah, I think Olave's really been solid this year. I think he's someone that has shot up a lot of I guess he shot up a lot of fantasy football charts in regards to the fact that he's really made a name for himself this year. So I would go with those two personally, as far as that's concerned. Pittman, Pittman's kind of Pittman's kind of hot and cold for me. He's been hot and cold as far as a producer this season. Devontae Smith as well. So I would say the two best bets for over the next 3 to 4 weeks would probably be Boyd or Olave until, like you said, Jamar Chase comes back from that injury.
Yeah, and you've got to be cautious with Pittman too, with Sam Ellinger as QB. Not to say he won't do well, but let's take a wait and see approach there.
Oh, tell me about it. I mean, with the new quarterback change there, like you said, I really think that the Colts are having a lot of issues. So anytime you throw a new quarterback into the mix because you're unhappy with what was there previously with Matt Ryan, I really think that right now that you got to go ahead and maybe stay off of that unless you know for sure that those two are connection, and we don't know that yet. So I think that Boyd and Lavi are probably the best bets right now. Super CNB says, Challenger says, all right, appreciate you all. Yes, appreciate you as well. Great suggestions, great questions for both you and Slamby. If you have any questions for us at any point in time, you can pop it right here on Pop Culture Cosmos on YouTube or isfantasyfootball at yahoo.com or Inside Sports FF on Twitter at any point in time at all. We'll go ahead and make sure we get you taken care of. But before we head on out, my friend, NFL Week 8 picks, we're at Ocho, as the ESPN say, would be the Ocho. So, what are some games right now that you're seeing that are of interest for you? I think right now for me, the Bears are so frustrating when it comes to fantasy football because I have both running backs, but I just for some reason I don't start both running backs, and I always get burned if I don't start both running backs because they both are producing. Your thoughts on the Bears as they head into Dallas this weekend?
I can't figure them out. I think that Monday nighter was just a head scratcher to say the least. While
Yeah,
the
tell me
ground
about it.
game was, yeah, the ground game was very impressive. Justin Fields was impressive. I mean, it looks like you get him on the move, he uses his legs, he can create a lot of havoc and get you some points. Now, the problem is he's going up against an excellent Dallas defense this week, so I don't know if that bodes well for him or the running game. So I would say proceed with caution there. But then too, like who's going to be the starter or who's going to get the bulk of the carries in Chicago from week to week? That's the other part of the equation.
I will say though that we have another question from Slamby, and that's CMC being traded. As far as Christian McCaffrey is being, was traded, of course. Who is the best pickup going forward, Hubbard or Foreman?
I think if he's healthy, it's Hubbard. I like the way he ran. Just watching him in college, I like him. Had Foreman, he's bounced around. He was with the Texans at one point, I know. So Foreman's your guy if Hubbard's hurt long term, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be the case. Even if Hubbard misses this week, I don't think it's anything serious or long term.
Hubbard's still the starter, I believe, right? Now that
Yes,
that's yeah.
yeah,
So
he's
if
he's
that's the
only
case,
not starting this week if they're holding him out for injury. I read.
okay.
So yeah.
Okay. I would probably say Hubbard. I mean, that's a long play. I think that they're going to probably feed him the ball once he gets back onto the field, whether it's this week or going forward. I really think that probably with a team that's heading in the direction that Carolina is, once again, that Hubbard would probably be the best bet going forward. And that's just our thoughts right there. Again, if you have any questions for us, isfantasyfootball@yahoo.com or Inside Sports FF on Twitter. But any other games stick out to you this weekend? Again, for me, it was just like I said, the Bears. I think they can go ahead if they can control the line of scrimmage and control the ball on the ground. I think that they have a chance. I know with the rookie quarterback and all, I think there's still some pretty uneven results, but I think that's probably something that they still can handle. What do you think about maybe as far as I know any upsets that you see. I know that we're going to go ahead and hit the doghouse in a sec, but let's say with the Giants heading into Seattle, your Giants are now 6-1. Can you imagine that for the first time in our history, in all the years that we've been doing it, the Giants are now relevant, and you're not having a headache? Your thoughts on the Giants as they go into Seattle?
It's unbelievable, and I know the skeptics out there in NFL land say, "Well, they're playing a last place schedule." Well, they're beating the teams they should, and as we saw tonight, Tom Brady couldn't beat the Ravens, and the Giants did. I think it's a great story. It's a testament to coaching because let's face it, other than a couple draft picks this year, they really have been in salary cap hell, and it's not like Joe Shane has restocked the team with talent. So you got to attribute it to coaching and a new attitude there, and let's not forget. Special thanks to John Harbaugh letting Wink Martindale go. And when the Giants signed him as defensive coordinator, got a little optimistic, but this has exceeded expectations. He's done a great job with that blitzing scheme. Thibodeau, their first pick out of Oregon, looks like the real deal, and they got an aggressive secondary. So, very optimistic. In a weak NFC, it's not unreasonable. You're not going to have to check me into an institution, Gerald, to say it. The Giants, as it stands right now, if they avoid the injury bug, be a playoff team come January.
Well, I agree with you on that. I think there are going to be some really great matchups going forward, especially here in the coming weeks. This weekend, it looks like there's a lot of mismatches, I think, on paper, what we're seeing, but you never know. There could be some really good matchups on the way. I think the Titans will probably go ahead and go into Houston, probably blow them out. I see that probably would be, I think they'll cover whatever the point spread is now. I think the point spread's like at 8, if I last time I checked. But I think that's, oh, is it 10?
I believe it hit double digits. I can't remember if it was
Okay.
10 or not, but yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
these lines move so much these days.
Well, that's true. That's true. I really think though there's the really good matchup that I see are the 49ers and the Rams, and of course the Commanders and the Colts. The Commanders and the Colts could be really ugly for altogether different reasons because of all the different changes that they've made, and like you said, Sam Ellinger is going to be able to go ahead and play the quarterback, and with Carson Wentz on the Commanders side and all that fiasco going on, I'm surprised they're even 3-3 at this point. So that could be really ugly. It's one of those 14-10 type matchups. But the 49ers and the Rams, right there for a key game in the NFC West. Your thoughts on this game before we head to the woof woof woof, the doghouse?
Yeah, a few weeks ago, the 49ers totally manhandled the Rams, made Matt Stafford's life miserable. I know they've had some injuries on both sides of the ball recently, the 49ers, and they lost to the Chiefs this past week, or got lit up actually. But for whatever reason, Kyle Shanahan seems to have Sean McVay's number. Rams coming off a bye. We'll see if things have been figured out. We'll see if the Rams can find a running back. Because let's face it, that's a big source of their offensive issues this year. They just cannot run the ball, and Stafford's throwing too much, and hasn't worked out well, to say the least. But these always end up being entertaining games when they play in SoFi. Also turns into a glorified 49ers home game with the crowd that tends to show up to support the Niners. But I think even longer term, this should be interesting to see how the Rams rebound and what the race for the NFC West will look like, especially with the surging Seattle Seahawks looming.
That's correct. And if they do, the Seattle Seahawks get out this weekend with the win, they could really make a claim on the NFC West going forward, especially if the Rams falter and the 49ers are still only getting to break even point. They're still having, they still have to acclimate Christian McCaffrey fully into the offense. So this is something where we could see it on the fly here in the, like you said, the SoFi Stadium, which I was actually right next to yesterday. So it was actually really cool to check it out and how big and spacious it is. It really looks cool. But before we head on out, my friend, before we go ahead and say our goodbyes and what's going on with Domination Sports Nation, also want to give a thanks again for Jordan Zucker from the Girls Guide to Sports for stopping by. But before we head on out, my friend, I'm going to go ahead and before we go ahead and out, before we get to the doghouse, got one more question. Slamby says, what's your thoughts on Tyler Boyd's volume after Chase's injury? Well, then I think it goes back to the number two. Although they're probably going to ease Chase back in. It's not automatically he's going to go back to like nine, 9 targets a game like they, in the past. I really think that Boyd is still going to be someone they're going to be reliant upon for quite some time until Chase gets actually fully right on the field.
Yeah, and with that 4 to 6 week prognosis, I mean, just ride Boyd as long as you can. He'll still have value once Chase returns, but even then, if the Bengals are in a playoff slot and they may want to ease Chase back in, maybe not run him as much in anticipation of needing him more in January. So I think regardless of what happens, this is good for Boyd's productivity.
Spirit is stopping by. Aaron Jones for Cordell Patterson.
I'm a Jones owner and I'm holding on to him. I know he caught that nice touchdown pass last week. I just think, can it really get any worse for the Packers offense? Something has to give at this point, short of Rodgers retiring or throwing another tantrum. But between the two, I mean, I guess I'm a little bit biased because I'm a Jones owner. I think I would hold on to Jones for the time being. Patterson was a great story last year, but just even going into this year, I felt like he's going to, regress to more of his historical standards. And I just don't know if the Falcons are for real either. Do you really trust Marcus Mariota?
Well, I think with Patterson, though, I think that as long as he stays on the field, I think he's going to be, a nice source. I just don't think, like you said, like last year, you're getting the same kind of productivity that you did in his surprise year last year. With Aaron Jones, people are just saying it's a matter of time. It's a matter of time. It's a matter of time. The problem is, we're starting to run out of time, my friend. We're already in week 8.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, at least the Packers can start beating up on some of those weaker NFC North opponents. They'll have one more game against the Vikings, but I think the schedule this week definitely isn't good against the Bills. But yeah, I mean, maybe in another week or two, it's time to panic. We shall see.
And then Cordell, he's actually not going to be available until week 9. A possibility he can come back by week 9. So if you go ahead and, if deal with Cordell, I mean, you're only going to get someone that's, if he's trading out Cordell, I mean, he already knows that he's not going to have him until week 9. So, I mean, at least you have a body right there, Aaron Jones, that's able to produce.
Agreed.
And then, but yeah, Spirit says he likes the Jones upside, but Patterson's more consistently good. Jones is a boom or bust. That's hot and cold, hot and cold. But with Patterson, he's going to be their he's going to be their top offensive guy. The thing is he going to come back in week 9? It says right now that he's going to come back in week 9, but we're not 100% sure. I mean, it looks good. It looks positive from what I'm reading the reports. He said he's pretty close to making his return. It's what I'm seeing in all the reports right now as I'm actually looking at it. And that's what actually the head coach is saying. I mean, you're Aaron Jones, man. I'm kind of leaning Patterson just because of the fact that once he comes back, he's for sure going to be someone that they want to include in the offense a lot.
Yeah, you just got to make sure he's back by week 9. If this lingers any longer, then you've got an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope you have some actual depth on your roster that you're able to go ahead and wait this out, because if Patterson, like you said, does not come back to week 10 or week 11, I think no later than week 10, because week 9 looks like he's kind of iffy right now, but it looks like you said he's on target to come back for week 9. You're going to have to go ahead and make sure that he's going to be able to go ahead and be back and be healthy enough to go ahead and produce. Because if he is on back out on the field, I think he is the Falcons' number one option.
Definitely.
So before we head on out, my friend, great questions right now. Spirit says I'm 3-4 right now. Which would be the best move to get? Which would be the best move to get me to the playoffs in a 16 full PPR playoff? So if that's the case, because you said you're Aaron Jones, that's who you have is Aaron Jones, and he's 3-4. He's in that rock and a hard place, my friend. Right now, he may not be able to wait it on out.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely get it. And if, like I said, this isn't like a looming long term injury scenario with Patterson, it's worth taking a flyer. What do you have to lose at this point at 3-4 in a league of that size?
All it takes a couple wins to get you back on track and to get you right out there in front of your league. It's something that I think it's what in a 16 full PPR playoff. I think that's something that's still very reachable for you. Yeah, I guess at this point in time, Aaron Jones for Patterson. If you don't want to wait out the weeks, if you want to go ahead and make your move now and actually get some points now, sooner rather than later, Aaron Jones might be the key.
Indeed.
All right, before we head on out, great questions from Spirit, great questions from Slamby, great questions from Super CNB Challengers, great questions indeed. If you have any questions for us, always Inside Sports FF on Twitter, isfantasyfootball@yahoo.com, or just right here at Pop Culture Cosmos on YouTube. But before we head on out, my friend, it is going to go ahead and be a nice day. We stretch out on the lawn. We go ahead and, like I said, jump over the kids' toys, as I always say, try to avoid them. I guess the sun is not as hot anymore, so it's okay to go outside. It's nice 60 to 50 to actually sometimes in some places some 70-degree weather. So it's really nice to go ahead and stretch out and take a walk on the lawn. We go across the lawn and woof woof woof, we head over to the doghouse.
Well, we were on hiatus last week, so the streak did not continue, but we hope to pick it up again. One loss so far, and I've avoided picking the aforementioned Giants from week to week. Thought about it a few times. They've done well against the spread. They've performed well as an underdog, and this week they head into Seattle. I know it's a tough place to play, but the Giants won there a couple years ago with an inferior head coach named Joe Judge and an inferior quarterback in Colt McCoy and offense in general. So they go into the home of the 12s, as they call it, with the loud decibels and so forth. But they're getting 3.5 points. And Gerald, you know how I love that extra hook. I say take it. The Giants have really played well on the road as well this year. Their one loss to the Cowboys at home, and that was even a winnable game for them. I just think that with DK Metcalf banged up and the way the Giants have been playing against the run, I think they can contain Walker enough. And again, I think it'll be a close game, not super high scoring. I think, as long as they contain Geno Smith's legs, I think they should be in good shape and well positioned to win. But if not, they lose by 3. You get that glorious extra half point and you cover. So Giants first time this year will be my doghouse pick.
One last thing from Spirit, and here it goes. He just traded Fournette, Pittman, and Geno for Pierce, Henderson, and Mike Evans. Was it a good or a bad trade? Depends on who your quarterback is if you traded Geno away.
Yeah, that's part one. I do like Pierce. Have him in one league, as I mentioned. I think he's got a lot of upside. Um, hmm. Yeah, if you're trading Geno, I'm hoping you got a depth at quarterback.
Yeah, that's always, me and my depth of quarterback. I always look to that as far as a key for the season that keeps me in a lot of ball games. So we saw that tonight that Mike Evans was a great pick. I mean, I'd say yeah, because Brady is his quarterback.
Okay.
So you haven't had quite the season with Brady at the quarterback position. So I think that That's tough. I mean, Evans produced for you today. He got you the big numbers, so you got Brady. You're tied to Brady and Evans going forward. So as long as you're comfortable with Brady, I think he's actually going to go ahead and have a better second half of the season than he has the first half of the season. So I see a little bit better things from Kim going forward. I think that he's going to shout at his offensive linemen until they turn blue in the face, and then hopefully we'll get things straightened out. But they only put 22 on the board today. I mean, something's got to go. I think a little bit better for Brady. I think going forward, I think they still have a chance to get in the playoffs. I think they'll make the playoff surge. I think Brady, this is probably his last year. Well, I said that before, so I don't know about that, but I think they've still got a run left in them. They're playing extremely poor at home, which is kind of puzzling. So if they can figure that out, I mean, he threw for 325 yards today, so that's pretty solid. They still found a way to lose. I still think there's a run left in Tampa Bay's wallet to go ahead and cash in on. I'd say that's a pretty good. I'd say I'm going to lean towards good, even though Geno Smith, we don't know how much longer this fantasy run will last.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's face it, the Buccaneers play in one of the weakest divisions in football, so it's not out of the realm of possibility to say that 8-9 or 9-8 even wins that division. So they're not out of it by any means.
I think it's all based on Geno. If Geno really continues to light it up, which I think the odds are against it, but it's you never know. It's been a crazy season so far, so I'm not going to put it all behind it. But statistically, the odds would lean against Geno Smith because of the fact he's not been able to do this for quite some time since 2014, I think 2015, I think.
Something like that, yeah, way back.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Something like that. I think, yeah, it is quite a bit since he's been able to play a full season. So we'll see what happens. Spirit, thank you so much for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed yet to the Pop Culture Cosmos, not only do you get us right here at Inside Sports Fantasy Football, but we do cover the latest news and trends every week, twice a week at the Pop Culture Cosmos, whether it's me and Josh Peterson or me and Melinda Barkhouse Ross. Actually, in a little bit, about an hour from now, I will go ahead and talk to Melinda Barkhouse Ross about the latest in pop culture on PCC Multiverse number 300. We're celebrating 300 episodes of the PCC Multiverse here coming up. But my friend, it's always great talking to you. Want to thank once again Jordan Zucker for stopping by from Girls Guide to Sports. Any last thoughts before we head on out, my friend?
Just like I said, the injuries are going to keep happening, it appears, here in the NFL in 2022. Don't panic. If you can, try and have a little bit of foresight, pick up a running back like we alluded to earlier, Foreman on the Panthers, not the greatest guy, but he's an injury away, as we saw, from being the starter. So start being a little more strategic, look forward to the bye weeks, see who's where on the depth chart now. I mean, this Jamar Chase injury came out of left field today. We knew he was hurt, but we didn't know the extent of it. So see who else that would affect in the Bengals roster, who Burrow will be distributing the ball more to besides Boyd. So start thinking like that, because as we said, there's slim pickings in some of these leagues on waivers. And if you can't find a trading partner, you got to try and find that diamond in the rough.
I know in our league that we are in together, we're like vultures. So everybody's all gone. We're just the carcass has already just ravaged on the waiver wire. So we're already just done with it. But my friend, it's always great to see you, especially great to see you happy for the first time in 4 years, I think, since we've been doing this
Yeah.
show, that you've actually had a reason to smile about the New York Giants. That's how bad they've been for
Yeah.
quite
And
some time.
I don't think I've worn a Giants hat other than maybe earlier this year. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's really a breath of fresh air.
A breath of fresh air indeed. In fact, like I said, the entire time we've done the show, the Giants and Jets have always been bad. So that tells you right there that the futility of the actual New York sports teams as far as from a football standpoint. So happy to see they're finally producing for you, my friend.
Thank you.
Spirit just picked up Donta and Pickens. Not too bad. Man, your waiver wire is a lot better than ours
It
as far
sure
as what's
is. I
available.
wish those
Yeah.
guys were out there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. For us, once if somebody is out there, there's like 6 teams putting waiver wire claims
Yeah.
on them. So that's it's yeah. We all see it. We all see it. We all go ahead after it, and only one of us gets lucky on it. And if we were like Chris and I, who've already done a lot of waiver wire maneuvers already, even though we actually supposedly picked well in the draft. It just doesn't matter to us because we're always like 9 and 10 in the waiver wire leagues.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, at some point, if there's a quarterback you like and he had a bad week, go pick him up because when he bounces back next week, the vultures will sure to show up on Wednesday morning.
Absolutely. But make sure you know your bye weeks too. Whoever's on bye this week, please go ahead and check that out. Don't let that slip up. Don't let that cost you points out there on the field. So go ahead and make sure you got that covered. But before we end it out, my friend, I wanted to thank you so much for stopping by. But please give us the lowdown on what you're doing with your awesome son and what you're doing with your awesome show this week on the Domination Sports Nation that just dropped yesterday.
Great. Yeah. Thanks, Gerald. We're back in the swing of things doing weekly shows. For those of you who don't know, Dom is my son. We try and do a sports show that's from the perspective of an old man Gen Xer like me and a Gen Zer like my son. We talk anything and everything. This week it was about the pathetic performance of our beloved New York Yankees, previewing the World Series in the NFL. We talk about whether it's time to hit the panic button on the Bucks and the Packers, and something that'll warm Gerald's heart. We talked about the first week of the NBA season and how truly pathetic the Lakers and Nets have been so far. So get us wherever you find your podcast is Dom Dash in Nation Sports Nation.
Hey, I host the Lakers Fast Break, and you can see all the Lakers jerseys behind me. As one of the hosts of one of the most popular and one of the highest rated Lakers podcasts that are out there. It pains me to see the Lakers doing so bad, but hey, it gives us plenty to talk about. So I look at it on the other side of the fence, indeed. So Spirit says, yeah, Lakers fan here, appreciate it. If you ever get a chance, check me out on my other YouTube channel, Lakers Fast Break. I have the most opinionated guys that are out there on the Lakers. They come by each and every time out. Check out Joe Soro and his controversial takes. Check out Laker Tom and his beloved Lakers-centric takes. Check out my takes as I host the show. It is Lakers Fast Break. Hopefully you get a chance to check it out. It is available on YouTube at Lakers Fast Break and wherever you get your podcasts, indeed. So I will say that right now as a Lakers fan. Hard times for us, but again, that just gives us more to talk about on the Lakers Fast Break. So for Chris Lardieri, and also thank you again to Jordan Zucker. Truly appreciate it. Want to thank so much everybody for watching and listening. Hoping that your NFL Week 8 will be a great one for you. Hopefully your team will win. Chris, I can't say the same for you because you're actually one game up on me in the league. So I'm going to have to say no. Your Run DMC will not, I hope, win this week. Hopefully mine will. We'll find out. But for everybody else, hopefully you'll have a prosperous and great and productive NFL Week 8. And we'll see you next week for NFL Week 9 and what's going on with the latest news and trends in fantasy football. Guess what? Right around the corner is the actual NFL trade deadline. So you're going to see even more moves coming up. So we'll talk about them next week right here at Inside Sports Fantasy Football. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching and listening. Thanks so much, Spirit. Good luck this weekend with all your fantasy football team. We truly appreciate you taking time to checking us out.